Contact tracing on Kenya's matatus. With coronavirus raging, the minibuses of Nairobi launch a registration system to alert commuters when a rider tests positive for the virus.
Upgrades for the Navy, aiming to strengthen operational activities and enhance morale. Nigeria's Navy seeks to improve its infrastructure. Hello and thanks for tuning into the show that goes around the continent to bring you stories near and far. I'm Joke Rogers at Channels Television here in Lagos, and I'm joined by Vincent McCory from the Voice of America in Washington.
Thanks, I'm Vincent McCory. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, our broadcast looks a little different for now. We appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Channels Television in Lagos brings you that story.
The Nigerian Navy Beecroft and NNS Way have witnessed some form of infrastructure upgrade in order to strengthen operational activities and enhance the welfare of personnel. Our correspondent, Chris Ilems, reports.
It's a gathering of state security chiefs at NNS Beecroft at the Western Naval Command at Apapa, Lagos.
The main gates.
They are yet to be part of the latest addition by the Navy to boost its infrastructure base, enhance operations, and secure not just the maritime space, but also monitor activities at the waterfront. An automated main access gate, a 200-seat pavilion at the parade ground, and the CCTV are all parts of the latest assets to the base.
Only this one revolves. It covers almost of where the cameras are within this area. This one is meant for patrol. You can see now, if it zooms, you can see up to, look at Lagos Island, look at Federal Palace, all you can see. If this tanker is not there, you can see even Dr. from here.
Similar infrastructure upgrade at the NNS Way or Job Barracks has taken into cognizance the challenges of accommodation for personnel. Set to be deployed for usage are 2 blocks consisting of 74 self-contained of transit accommodation as a quick impact project to address the acute shortage of residents for junior ratings drafted to various units in Lagos. The flag officer of the Western Naval Command, Rear Admiral Oladele Daji, while delivering the message of the Chief of Naval Staff, seized the opportunity to pay a glowing tribute to personnel, some of whom have paid the supreme price in the line of duty.
As far as the Nigerian Navy is concerned, it's not just rhetorics, but also translated into the catering for the families, of fallen heroes across, the length and breadth of all establishments in the Navy, and not just on the Armed Forces Remembrance Week or Remembrance Day, but at all times.
By this gesture, Nigerians will expect that personnel who have been offered improved welfare will give their best in tackling increasing crime rates. Chris Ilems, Channels Television News.
Let's get more on this story from a security analyst, Chidi Nwonu. Thank you so much for joining us today on the program.
Thank you for having me.
So what impact is this upgrade likely to have on the country's internal security?
Well, there's several factors that one must take into account. And the first is, how much of this equipment can be used for internal security and how much of it is going to be used to protect, to protect power externally. Now, the key security issues from the Navy's point of view will be the Gulf of Guinea and the high levels of piracy there. Now, the new platform should help if used properly. The patrol boats would really help. We've got, radars and the total domain control systems that you should be able to use to monitor the area. So again, it comes down to not just the equipment, but how it's going to be used and who the men using it, how well trained are they, how well led are they, and how well planned are the operations.
The Chief of Naval Staff has paid tribute to officers who paid the supreme price while protecting the country. But what else can be done to compensate the family members who have lost loved ones as well?
Well, I think this This is a very important question because a lot is made of not just the physical or the monetary kind of aspects of paying and compensation, which is important. There should be an insurance scheme that not only compensates the loved ones or the dependents of any fallen soldier, but also provides maybe a scheme where you can provide for their education as well. It would also be very useful if the government, maybe operated something like the same kind of system that operated COVID, where you draw in donations from companies and make it in a structured way so that it not only rewards the soldiers, it also and the other military personnel. It also makes the public aware of the sacrifices. But I think the final and most important point is that we always hear of one soldier dying or one officer dying. We never hear their names. We never hear where they're from or any of these details. So it's very important to make the sacrifices to be human and understand that it's not just a man in a uniform that died. It was somebody's father, somebody's son, somebody's brother, and humanize these losses so that people understand the true sacrifice of war.
And apart from infrastructure upgrade, what else can be done to boost the welfare of all military personnel, not just the Navy, especially as regards their mental health in these trying times of COVID-19 and, of course, the incessant security challenges?
Oh, there's lots of things. There's a huge swath of things that could be done. But I would say the first thing is obviously the most basic is making sure they're paid properly and on time. And then making sure they're properly trained. They get the best training. Nothing boosts a soldier's confidence more than knowing you're well trained and having that, that self-confidence of knowing that if I step into the field, I'm the strongest and the best, the best person who is out there. At the same time, as I said, humanizing their service and their sacrifice, letting us know who these people are. It would take very little to have, a little, maybe even a documentary showing, the lives of service personnel. Making sure their accommodation is fit for purpose so that they've got a good place to go back to, making sure they've got good education establishments for their children. But most importantly, making sure that their lives are not wasted. And that if they're being committed to a conflict, they're being committed for a just reason. They're being committed properly with the right planning.
And finally, how can Nigeria harness the strength of the military as a whole to tackle challenges of insurgency, kidnapping, armed robbery, and banditry?
I will take that question back and say the Nigerians or Nigeria should not be using the military to tackle bandits, armed robbery, or things like that. That should be the job of the police. And the fact that we do use our military for all of these tasks is part of the problem. The military should be for defending the country from, conflicts, from invasion, and in times of war or major emergencies. All of these are jobs for the police. So maybe the best thing we can do for the military at this time is to build up a really competent, well-equipped and well-trained police force.
Right, thank you, Chidi Nwanu. Thank you for joining us today on Africa 54.
Thanks for having me.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. After the break, containing desertification in Africa's northern Sahel region. Development banks and states pledge billions of dollars to enhance the Great Green Wall initiative. Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. French President Emmanuel Macron says development banks and states are pledging billions of dollars over the next 4 years to build a Great Green Wall to help contain desertification in Africa's northern Sahel region. Soraya Ali has the details.
What's 5,000 miles long, stretches from the Atlantic to the Red Sea, and has now secured over $14 billion of investment.
The Great Green Wall de la Grande Muraille Verte.
Autour de la Grande Muraille Verte.
De la Grande Muraille Verte.
The answer? Africa's Great Green Wall. But what exactly is it, and how much progress has been made? First, the concept. The aim of the Great Green Wall is to halt desertification by growing the largest living structure on Earth. The planting of a strip of trees and other vegetation stretching from Senegal to Djibouti is intended to trap the sands of the Sahara and protect surrounding land, something that environmental experts say would restore 100 million hectares of land, provide food security, create jobs, and offer young people an alternative to migration. Speaking at a January summit in Paris, French President Emmanuel Macron announced that pledges had exceeded the initial target of $10 billion, with development banks and states now pledging over $14 billion over the next 4 years to protect Africa's biodiversity. For some, the acceleration seems long overdue. Since the birth of the Great Green Wall initiative in 2007, progress has been arguably slow, with only 4% completed. Speaking at the same event, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki Mahamat, urged for more to be done.
14 years after the launch of this initiative, the dream has faded slightly. Only 4 million hectares of land have been converted of the 100 million planned.
The extra boost could push the initiative further towards its goal of restoring 100 million hectares of degraded land and creating 10 million green jobs by 2030. The Great Green Wall will be the largest living structure on the planet, 3 times the size of the Great Barrier Reef.
Nigerian environmentalists and recyclers are battling a rising tide of electronic waste, some of which contain toxic materials. The country generates hundreds of thousands of tons of electronic waste annually, the bulk of which is imported as used electronics.
Several shipping containers arrive in Nigeria every day, most filled with non-tested second-hand electronic appliances that are often dead on arrival. Most of these appliances are discarded fridges, desktop monitors, CD players, or air conditioners shipped in from Europe, with no guarantee for both the importers and buyers ever using them, yet they continue to bring them in. It was a rainy day in Lagos, and Chika Odiri Michael had just offloaded a container full of such electronic appliances. His warehouse is full of ready buyers and scavengers who will either buy these off him or take away the numerous appliances that are obviously not ever going to be used.
Apart from the exchange rates, and the exchange is too high, most of the goods we bring we cannot even sell them, and most of them are waste. So it's excess loose this time around.
A report published in June 2020 by the UN's Global E-Waste Monitor, global e-waste has surged up by 21% in just 5 years, with a record 53.6 million metric tons of electronic waste generated worldwide in 2019. A new report also predicts global e-waste will reach 74 million metric tons by 2030, almost a doubling of e-waste in just 16 years. And this makes e-waste the world's fastest growing domestic waste stream, fueled mainly by higher consumption rates of electric and electronic equipment, short life cycles, and a few options for repair. Some recyclers and environmentalists are now pushing against these imports and enlightening the masses and scavengers on the toxicity levels and impacts of not properly disposing of these appliances.
From the start of this country, we haven't had really any answer for the electronic waste that we produce. Talk less of the electronic waste that gets dumped on us from outside, because we are importers of electronic goods. We're supposed to be refurbishable, but they turn out, the majority of them turn out to be dead, turn out to be e-waste that needs to be sent back abroad to be refined.
It is common in Nigeria to see stalls selling worn-out second-hand appliances, commonly referred to as tokumbo, a Yoruba word that means from abroad. Traders also often cut open these items, mostly looking out for gold and copper parts, oblivious of the fact that the mercury and lead found in e-waste could harm their health.
We're putting the profit above the people. We're putting gain above the common good, and it's not acceptable. There has to be fundamental changes. Hopefully this whole COVID issue will help us to become aware that, nature is a force that must be harmonized, that must even be cared for.
Ochonogo's factory has a capacity to handle 10 tons of e-waste a month, a far cry from what the country generates.
As Kenya sees a jump in confirmed cases of COVID-19, the country's colorful public transport buses, called matatus, have launched a registration system in the capital for passenger contact tracing. Now, if a rider tests positive for the virus, other commuters will get an alert that they should go for testing. Ruud Elmendorp reports from Nairobi.
Matatus, or minibuses, are a part of Nairobi's street culture, but also, due to cramped quarters, a spreader of COVID-19.
We are worried because sooner or later that infection rate will go beyond expectation, and it also boils down to our clients, who are the commuters, who are the working class, who are the informal sector.
To combat the problem, Kenya's Matatu Welfare Association in November introduced a contact tracing application in the capital. The app works by asking passengers to register as having boarded a particular Matatu at a particular time.
The idea is very noble because when you're traveling, you won't know who has the virus or not. So at least with the registration, we'll be able to follow up and follow they're called what? The people who you are with contacts with.
The data is managed by a Kenya government-certified IT company. If a passenger later reports testing positive, the other riders will receive an alert. But there are limitations. Reporting an infection is voluntary.
If it is the other way around of enforcement, some people may try to beat the system or to just resist being coerced into certain things. We will not be able to achieve the goal. When we change their mindset, they'll be able to take up that as personal responsibility.
Kenya's health sector providers say contact tracing is critical for preventing COVID-19.
So even when you find the contact and you ask them to quarantine, you will not have 100% compliance with the quarantine. But even if you achieve 50% compliance with the quarantine, already you are actually contributing to reducing the spread and the force of the pandemic.
Kenya's National Transport and Safety Authority, NTSA, a partner on the contact tracing program, says if helpful in Nairobi, they will expand it.
Any effort by any entity that would help minimize the spread and the deaths will be embraced. So yes, if it is something that we can work with, we will promote it both in Nairobi and the other cities.
As Kenya navigates a second wave of COVID-19 cases, millions of Matatu riders can help beat the virus, one ride at a time. Ruud Elmendorp for VOA News, Nairobi.
So it's time now to step into Cairo's Museum of Illusions. The museum offers an interactive experience for people of all ages through its spectacular installations that defy the physics of perception and illusion. Take a look.
Walk under a swimming pool, fully dressed without getting wet. Step into a tunnel where the ground sways under your feet. Or stand upside down in a rotating room. But this is all just pure illusion. It's an experience offered in Cairo's Museum of Illusions, where visitors enjoy nearly 70 installations that test their senses.
Honestly, this is a new experience. This is the first time to have something like this in Egypt. This is suitable for all ages. The young and old will have fun. Illusions are all things that I see for the first time.
Illusions are designed to trick one's senses, but everything has its own scientific, mathematical, or psychological explanation.
You enter and you see things that are not real. But at the same time, there is an explanation that makes you understand why you see things this way.
The museum offers an interactive experience for people of all ages. The illusions also include holograms, optical illusions, and an infinity room.
Mali's iconic Bamako Hippodrome has reopened its traditional horse races on Sundays after months of being closed due to COVID-19. Horses are ingrained in Mali's culture and youth flock to the races in droves. Annie Riesenberg reports from Bamako.
Every Sunday since 1946, spectators have flocked to the racetrack in Bamako's Hippodrome neighborhood, named after the track itself, to watch the horses run. Mahamadou Tangara was one of those spectators as a child. Now a professional jockey, he has won numerous championships and represented Mali in races abroad.
I saw the great jockeys, how they raced the horses, so since that day I decided that one day in the future I'm going to be a jockey.
The various empires that ruled Mali throughout its history depended on horses for transport and for the strength of their armies. Under French colonial rule, horse racing around a circular track was brought to Mali in the early 1900s.
There are so many cultural manifestations that are done by horse or around horses. Even in the past, during the pre-colonial period, the power of an army was measured by its number of cavalry.
In March, the races were abruptly stopped due to COVID-19. For jockeys like Tangara, this meant a complete loss of income. On any given Sunday, a jockey can win between $91 and $182 in prize money.
All I felt was difficulty, just hard times, because if we work, we win something. If we don't work, we win nothing. So we had 8 months where we didn't work.
The races started up again on November 15th, and immediately, the sport's large, loyal audience returned to the track.
Equestrian sports play this main role in terms of the public who attend different activities. It's huge. For my part, I will say that in terms of the audience, it's number one.
But soon after the races were reopened, COVID-19 cases again rose sharply in Mali. Some of the jockeys and the organizers wear masks, but most of the audience is indifferent to COVID precautions. Officials are now discussing new COVID-19 countermeasures, which could include shutting down the races. The jockeys would lose their livelihoods again. But Dansoko says the community is ready to accept another shutdown if it will save lives. Annie Riesenberg for VOA News, Bamako, Mali.
And that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Check it out. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Channels Television has our last word from Lagos.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. Remember that channelstv.com is your source for news and other programming. I'm Joke Rogers. Thanks for watching and goodbye.